I'm Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and here we talk about true crime and psychology. Thank you so much for joining. Let's hop right into today's topic. Let's go.
Welcome. And I have all the emotions, all the feelings. I know that there were very big feelings about the Konig verdict. And I want for us to take a collective breath, take a step back, and let's take a look at the jury instructions. Because I do think that there was something in the jury instructions that allowed for the verdict that the jury came to. Something else that I also want to make sure, please do not discourage or disparage the jurors that have come forward, because I think at least one or two. So I saw an interview with juror number 3, and I believe I have that linked down in the description. And I also saw the interview with the 4-person. And the reason why I really, because I want jurors to come forward. So it was interesting to hear why the jurors came to the decision. But I think the fact that people came forward and talked about it, I think that's made people even more upset, and it's brought up a whole lot of other things. I also want to say at the start of this, I do think that former Dr. Konig, his relationship with his son Emil, I would completely understand if Emil decided to go no contact with him. I believe Emil that what Emil said, his dad told him on the phone, and so I don't know that Emil will ever come out and talk about it, but I think there are deeper ramifications. So the defense is not happy with this verdict. The defense wants not guilty. They want self-defense. And it's my understanding that they are going to appeal this verdict. And it's my understanding that they might try to fight for a new trial if they're upset about some of the things. And that's what defendants always do that. So defendants regularly do that. But him being found guilty of attempted manslaughter, that does make his divorce case. So I do believe that Arielle will be able to have a protective order. So sometimes they won't do a protective order while the person is incarcerated, but she would, or it might be a part of his sentencing that he never have contact with it. Like there might be something in sentencing that happens. But I think this will affect his, custody, because he was convicted of attempted manslaughter of his children's mother. That's what he was convicted of. And so I could see a family court judge awarding her full custody and him having no visitation. I could see that happening. We don't know, because he is going to fight against that. And so I do think that there are things in place to help protect her in the future. Because I know with this, a lot of people were concerned about Arielle. Now we're gonna take a breath, and over on Reddit, somebody posted the jury instructions. So let me share my screen and let's take a look at this real quick, because so it starts out with the top charge, the thing that the state wanted. So this was the charge. And so a person commits the offense of attempted redrum. And I'm laughing a little because people get mad. They want it red rum, and I like redrum. In the second degree, if he intentionally engages in conduct which under the circumstances he believes them to be a substantial step in the course of conduct intended or known to cause the death of another person. There are two material elements, and these are the elements. So they have that there. He wanted to be found. So then it was if you unanimously find all the elements of attempted in the first degree, and unanimously find that the defendant was not acting in self-defense, then you must consider the affirmative defense of extreme mental or emotional disturbance. And it says you must. So this is a part of the law that this was something that had to be considered. Extreme mental or emotional disturbance has two elements. The elements are the defendant was at the time he attempted to cause the death of another person under the influence of extreme mental or emotional disturbance, and there was a reasonable explanation for the extreme mental or emotional disturbance. And so I don't know that the state did enough to fight against that it wasn't an extreme mental or emotional disturbance. He sounded calm. Now, I do think he was upset about the alleged affair and everything. When he talked about, because he said the words on the stand, uh, former doctor, and that's what I want to call him, former Dr. Konig, he said that he was under extreme emotion. He said something like severe emotional distress. He said some word like that. But for me, the severe emotional disturbance he was describing was the aftermath, him realizing how this will affect his kids, the fact that he got caught, the fact that the police were going to be looking for him. To me, him being upset was more about the aftermath than like in the actual act. And commonly what'll happen in true crime is if a spouse walks in on their partner in the act and they harm them in some way, sometimes they will say like they snapped. It didn't sound like he snapped on, like it sounded planned to me. That's how it sounded to me. But if I was on the jury with those instructions, I would have I and if we couldn't get if everybody couldn't get to guilty of second degree murder, then so second degree or the attempted manslaughter was right under that because he could have. There were jury instructions for assault. So he could have been found guilty. So they could have went down even from, because the defense tried to make it sound like her injuries weren't that bad and like he wasn't trying to unalive her. That's the defense that they put on. That expert that they brought in was all to say that things weren't really that bad. And so I do think that the things that were kept out of the trial can come in for his sentencing. I think Hawaii is similar to Utah or some of those states where the parole board is really the one that looks at how long people stay. Like once they're incarcerated, the parole board is the one that kind of determines things. JD Explains and also Lawyer Lee covered things. I absolutely love Stitch. So we're gonna sidebar for a second. And this has a bunch of different emotions. So Stitch is excited, bored, shocked, sad, delighted, amused, lonely. He's suave, disappointed, angry, fearful, and shy. And so this is one of my Disney shirts. I have a Stitch lounge fly that I wear with it. Side note, this just came in the mail on Thursday and I absolutely love it. So we have a Disney trip over the summer. And so I'm going to be inside out one day. I have a shirt that says core emotion. This is a core memory day. That's what I have. But that was a sidebar. So let's talk about radical acceptance, because even with all of that, even with understanding that logically, there, I think there are a lot of people that really identified with Arielle, maybe people that were also survivors of similar types of harm. And I think this brought up a lot. I think people are also concerned that his sentence might not be that long. Now, the one thing we also know is this trial was very, very public. This trial was so public, and so his life is going to be different. There are so he's never going to be I don't think he's going to be able to be a doctor. Somebody mentioned, because I think his citizenship, him and his family might have immigrated here. He is from South Africa. And I don't know if he became a citizen through the refugee process or if it was through marriage, but he technically did a crime, and I don't know if there's anything, because somebody asked, could he be deported? And I have absolutely no clue. Yeah, he's not going to be able to be licensed to practice. So I do think the state could have done a few things different. So I watched the state not interrupt the cross examination. So the defense team led the narrative, because even one of the jurors said the word scuffle, because scuffle was the defense's theory that there was some type of scuffle. I personally don't think that Arielle pushed him, or I don't think that happened. Um, and I wasn't on the jury. Okay. There are a lot of people that think, they've put it in my comments. They feel that the doctor should have been found not guilty. And they thought Arielle was the narcissist. I don't see it that way. And a lot of those comments that were going really negative against the victim. And it reminded me of the Megan Sundwall case that we covered, and that was the nurse, that one of the jury instructions included assisted unaliving, because I thought that Megan could have been found guilty of murder, but the jury found her guilty of manslaughter, and that it was that she assisted her quote unquote friend. And I'm putting quotes in it because their relationship was very toxic. It was not a healthy friendship at all. But this verdict reminded me of that. But really, please do not insult the jurors. So I actually had a juror reach out right after the verdict, and we were talking. So I was like, if you want to do an interview, I have a platform. But after seeing some of uh, but that person was like, they talked with one news outlet and they really weren't interested in talking about it anymore. And I really understood, because some people were really like really hard against the jurors, and they were given the instructions. I am glad that he was found guilty and that nobody bought. So to me, that verdict does not mean that they did not fully believe Arielle and Emil. I think they considered the emotional disturbance. I think the alleged affair. I do think that and the fact, and so y'all know he was not handling the alleged affair. He was not handling it well. He was, in my opinion, he was stalking her. He was big mad, and he's looking up divorce documents. He's doing all of these things, looking up the cost of their wedding, and so I think that might have factored into the jury finding that he might have been under extreme emotional disturbance. I would have if I was on that jury, I would have said why I thought that it met criteria for the top charge, what the state charged him with, but I would have done I would have agreed with attempted. And I wouldn't have agreed with assault. Like, I wouldn't have agreed with anything less than attempted, but this could have been a hung jury. And this jury, they took over 8 hours. There were over 8 hours of deliberation. They sat through all of that trial testimony. I wish the state had done a rebuttal case about the medications that he had in his bag at home, but I think they didn't know what he was going to say. So, but I wish they had had an expert from his job prepared for, is it allowed to have those medications at home? Because he on the stand, he made it sound like it was fine. Like, oh yeah, it's not a controlled substance, and you can just keep propofol. You can just keep the Michael Jackson stuff at home. And I don't know if that's true. um I know sometimes for rural clinics, sometimes they will have different, but I don't think this was a rural clinic. I don't think it was anything like that. I was surprised the prosecution didn't have a rebuttal case. I don't think that they needed to recall um a meal, or that they needed to recall Arielle, but just there were certain things he said that I thought could have been added. I also wonder if the jury noticed the fact that Mr. Miller wasn't called. And I'm sure he wanted to stay way out of this trial and way out of this case. People have asked about the marriage therapist. So the marriage therapist may be called into the divorce case and into the custody battle. And then if the children currently have therapists, so as an outpatient therapist, I've been brought in to, and I always let both parents know what my opinion is and what my statement is. I often try to talk with the child, and I often talk with the guardian ad litem. I do hope, if they don't have a guardian ad litem, I do hope that there is a guardian ad litem for the custody case, because I do think that there will be things that can come into those hearings that did not come into the this criminal trial. I've also seen people say that Arielle might be able to sue him civilly, and I don't know if she will. I don't know. I don't know if she will, for emotional distress or for person. And I'm not a personal injury lawyer. I'm not. Remember, I'm a psychologist that talks about these things from a psychological perspective. But I do believe that Arielle has a support system. I'm so glad that she has her parents. Some of the things he said on the stand, because let's say there's proof that he lied about things on the stand, some of his testimony could potentially be brought into a civil trial. I don't know. Like, it could be brought into something else. Um uh and once again, he is not happy with the guilty. He wanted not guilty. He wanted to just be able to go out and be free. If you follow it's the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, the Taylor Frankie Paul case. Emily D. Baker covered her custody hearing, and the guardian ad litem made a really great point in that case, because Taylor Frankie Paul, she had completed parenting courses. She had been identified as a low risk for future harm. but there have been additional incidents after that assessment. And so the guardian ad litem did express concerns about the reactivity. And the guardian ad litem is meant to be a neutral person, a person that represents the best interest of the child, because the father's attorney, of course, is going to say glowing things about the father. The mother's attorney is going to say glowing things about the mother. And the guardian ad litem, when they do their job well, because I've seen some guardian ad litems that haven't done a great job, or that they haven't. But the guardian ad litem in that case seems to be on it, and so and I've seen conflicting things. So when I Google what the potential sentence could be, it looks like it's 20 years, a max of 20, but then it looks like it might be a max of 10. And so I don't remember, I'm not the lawyer. Some lawyers have talked about it, and will go there. I do think that he will likely lose his medical license. Oh, okay. And so that's where I think Arielle will. So if she's given full custody, and she will likely have the things in place for her security. And when I've been the therapist working with a domestic violence survivor, I often recommend that they have a neutral person handle exchanges. So if the person does for some reason have unsupervised visits, I expect he might lose all custody. Um, a judge. So the kids are so young. The kids are really, really young, and um, and that's why I think he will continue to fight the attempted verdict, because he was all emotional, like he cried, like he was upset over it. Um, and that. Some people asked some questions. Let me pull up the questions that people had. Um, but when you're following cases, it is normal to have a strong desire for justice. Um, it is normal to have curiosity about what the future might hold, but it's really important to, just for your mental health, for your own mental health, to have some emotional boundaries that, and we can hope for change, because maybe there could be Ari's law that changes things, and that comes out down the road. And so because of this case, there could be a change in the actual law that happens down the road. I do think that, based on the way the jury instructions were written, which was incredibly confusing, but based on the jury instructions, I do respect their verdict. And so what will happen if they link him to more victims? So I don't think there were, so I think his first wife, I've seen allegations. So I don't know this for sure, but I've seen that his first wife might have had a protective order. I haven't confirmed that. I don't know but if there is anything from the past that can come up in civil court, and in the divorce case, and in the custody battle, those things can come in there. Ooh, Lisa, you're twisting your hair. Nice. So Saturday is your hair day. I also want to talk about radical acceptance. So I made a post on the community tab about, and that's where, when life gives you lemons, we have two options. And I can fight that there are lemons, but that's where suffering comes. And I'm going to steal from Afro Man and be like, when life gives you lemons, let's just make some lemon pound cake. And I truly do think that Arielle is smart. She is resourced. Emil is over the age of 18, and I don't think and so he has the choice of whether he has a relationship with his father, and based on, because he probably will go back and watch the testimony. The sentencing is going to be in August, and with that sentencing, the impact statements, all of those things. I The former doctor will probably make a statement, but his statement is probably going to be like, "Boo-hoo, woe is me. I'm so sad." I don't know. I think his statement will be all about himself. But with radical acceptance, one of the things I want to do is observe the resistance. So when I first saw the verdict, my first thing was like, but I had to take a breath. And the statement that gives me hope, that helps me, is I can't change the reality. So the reality is the jurors went, this was their decision. And I always say, no matter what the jury decides, I because it's not like I, I can't, just for your own mental health, for managing your own mental health, you have to be careful when. And so disappointment is normal, but I think for some people it gets to the point of like, but I think it's because of other things that come up with this, is it's like, this is injustice and this is all of this needs to change. And that's where we can funnel it into healthy ways. But once again, I'm glad that the jury found him guilty of not the most severe charge, but it was the next one. And so the statement that helps me is, it is what it is. I can't the verdict, it is what it is. And where do we go from here? So from here, now the state, Arielle, everybody's going to prepare impact statements. Now they move on to sentencing. And I do think that the medical license will likely be impacted by this severity of a charge. Like, this is a pretty severe charge. It's a class B felony. And then I name the facts. This is the verdict. It is what it is. And then attempt a posture of willingness, which is hard to do, but and then letting go of judgments. So a lot of judgmental things. So a lot of people are questioning people's intel. Like some of the comments have been mean, which was why I personally didn't feel okay bringing, because if I brought a juror on my platform, I wanted it to be a safe space for them to talk and share their thoughts, share what they were thinking. Please know that I have things down in the description for any survivors. So I have a lot of different resources down in the description. And so, yes. Okay. And so I didn't see this personally. I did not hear this statement, but this statement says that there might have been an online smear campaign about Arielle before the trial. Yeah. And I think Emil I think he'll likely be able to, will he be able to give an impact statement? Remember, I'm not a lawyer. I think he may. I know Arielle will be able to give an impact statement. I'm not sure, but yeah. Yeah, and I don't think the jurors saw any of those comments. So the lawyer, to me, the trial, the defense was a smear campaign of Arielle and her credibility. So yeah, I think it was an inappropriate relationship. I personally wouldn't have considered it an affair. And even if somebody does have an affair, that doesn't give somebody the right to try to take them off the earth. It just doesn't. And so radical acceptance, the difference between pain and suffering. So it is a skill that I actively practice. It comes out of a Buddhist tradition. Dr. Marsha Linehan put it into as one of the skills in dialectical behavior therapy. And so being able to practice radical acceptance, and it is a practice. It is not easy. Okay. And some people, they might take a break. They might take a break from things. Most people on here probably have seen the interview with the juror, and what I got from that interview is I think the defense did a pretty good job, because that juror repeated some of the talking points from the defense. But I think they also said that I think they viewed it as more of a mutual thing than I think a lot of us viewed it. And I have more information than the jury had. And if he got a new trial, he could be convicted on possibly on the top charge. The His attorney, Tommy Otaki, he seemed to have difficulty not asking leading questions. And so the state objected a bunch during closing. And if they had this to do all over again, they would probably object more in the direct examination of the defendant, because Mr. Otaki was pretty much like he was testifying, like he was saying, and then sometimes Gerhard would agree with it, sometimes he wouldn't. It was a lot. Um, so I think there was something in the law that said if they did find that, they had to consider emotional disturbance. And so there might have been some jurors, and we haven't heard from any jurors that really initially felt strongly about attempted murder. We haven't heard anybody come out and talk about that, but yeah. So psychologists are sometimes stricken from the jury. They often don't want a psychologist, because to me, I did not see that he was in emotional distress. Like when he described what he did, it didn't sound like he snapped and like he was in this extreme emotional. The way he described it, it didn't sound like extreme emotional disturbance to me personally. um it didn't sound that way to me. And I also didn't think his testimony came off credible. I didn't like the way that he was getting kind of snarky with the prosecutor. um I w- but if everybody else on the jury, if I was the only one saying I really think it was murder and every attempted murder, and everybody else was like manslaughter, and we're stuck, we're not moving, okay, like I would have, I would have agreed to, okay, y'all help me see it the way you see it. Okay, yes, that is my verdict. I would have went with it, because then we have a mistrial and we have to do it all again. If not mistrial, I think it's a whatever. It's a hung jury. You have a hung jury if they can't get to a verdict. And so it's not about caving to your conviction. It's about the jurors talking. So if one person had held out, and if the verdict wasn't unanimous, then he would have had a whole new trial. So that happened in the Karen Reed trial. They couldn't, her first trial, the jury couldn't get to a unanimous verdict on one of the charges. And that's why she had a whole second trial. And so, yeah. All right. All right. And so that's where we are. Um, I do think that, because I know a lot of people are concerned about the family for the future. And I do think that this verdict will help in family court. And I think Arielle has a team of lawyers that are supporting her, and there are victim advocates that also support survivors in these situations. And I am so glad that she survived. And this was not just a assault. I don't believe he only hit her 2 times. Um, and I don't think he would have stopped if those witnesses hadn't have come in. And we've covered a lot of other trials where the victim did not survive. The victim was not able to tell their story. And so my heart truly does go out to them. And so, question, why do you think they needed all the supplies? So I think they just wanted to write it out. There might have been somebody that was a visual learner. So I'm a very visual person. I would have wanted to be able to to see it. So they might have wanted to write some things on the board. There's a TikToker that sometimes draws out the scenario. So they talk about a complex situation and they draw it out on a whiteboard. I'm a visual person. I would have loved a whiteboard and to do all of that. And so that's probably why. Um, yes, 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 yes. Lots of visual learners in the chat. Okay. Uh, so I will do a poll because we can talk about a second case real quick. So I might have spelled it wrong. So there's a new option of a poll in StreamYard. Can y'all see that poll? Okay. So would y'all like to talk about Rex Heuerman real quick? Can y'all answer the poll? This is a brand new thing. I don't know how you vote for it. I might have to do some research after the yes. So that's what. Yes, yes, yes. So let's talk about it. Okay. And so if you want to head off, so anybody that does not want to hear about this next case, I'm not going to go into the details of it, but I do just want to talk briefly about the how they the Rex Heuerman. So let me pull up those details. I'm sorry if I'm saying and I spelled his last name wrong. So they call him the Long Island serial killer. He admitted to unaliving 8 women in the Gilgo Beach area. I believe the first one was in the 90s, and then the last one. Um, and my heart goes out to the families. Uh, um, and I saw Emily D. Baker talk about this case. So if you'd like a lawyer's breakdown, please go check out Emily D. Baker. I know the lawyer also talked about it as well. And with that case, I do think that okay, good. Y'all were able to vote. So we had people say yes. Good, good. Um so with that case, I think he wanted control. I also think his family. So if there was a whole trial, so at the true crime like person in me wanted to know, did his wife know? Did anybody ever suspect anything was wrong? And him pleading guilty kept his family out of the media. This is all on him. Okay. These are just my personal thoughts. I don't know this for sure. And I don't know that he wanted to put his fate in the jury. I don't know. I don't think he wanted to put his fate in the jury's hand. And I think the state had a ton of evidence. a ton of other evidence. Runkle talked about it too. I like Runkle of the Bailey. I think that's how you say his name. Um, and I don't. So sometimes as people get older, um, and so I don't know why. And so that's where it's my understanding that he has agreed to be profiled by the FBI. And also DNA, like there's more evidence in things because I wonder if he got afraid of getting caught later on because the things we have to search for crime, like the things that we have now with being able to track cell phones, being able to track websites, being able to track all of those things. I wonder if he was concerned about getting caught or also if he just got older. And so sometimes people with psychopathic traits, it's not that the psychopathy goes away. Sometimes they just don't have the energy later in life. Um, his crimes were particularly heinous because I think there's at least one individual that when she was a teenager, he actually called her to tell her about how her sister died. And that is just the level. And so if it is ever released, if we ever find out about his forensic psychological, I would just be fascinated to just learn more. I don't think there's a good reason. Like I think there's a sick side because even as in his when he was pleading guilty, there was kind of a smirk and a smile on his face. Scott Rouse did a video breaking down some of his body language during that hearing. And he commented that there were times that he did seem to be annoyed that the judge was taking a particular tone with him, or that kind of the judge, when the judge mentioned that if they find other things, that he can still be found guilty of blah, blah, blah. And that it's ultimately up to the judge to decide whether he accepts the verdict or not. Um, uh, I did not notice that he had several teeth mentioned missing. I didn't notice that. Um, uh, and so somebody mentioned that sometimes FBI profilers talk about that some people stop, that the urges die down later in life. I still think he's incredibly dangerous, and I'm glad that he's going to be in jail for the rest of his life. And by studying him, they might be able to stop and find um, others sooner. I think it was Scott Rouse that talked about him reminding him of Ted Bundy, some of his mannerisms, some of his, like, he seemed like a normal, typical person. The bailiff uncuffed him and didn't seem to be concerned that he would become aggressive or that he would lash out or do anything like that. Versus a Taylor Shabaznis, you never let her out of her cuffs. Letitia, I forget her maiden name because she doesn't, but Letitia Stout is the name that I know. You don't uncuff them because they can both be pretty volatile, and so um, uh, oh, wait a minute. His family got paid big by Peacock for access to the house and their personal life. I didn't hear that. Yeah, so I like Scott's channel. So I just subscribed. So I had watched a few of his videos. Sometimes their full behavioral analysis videos, they get to be too long. My ADHD can't take it because they have a panel of like 4 or 5 people and they all give their analysis on like the same clip. And I couldn't. I did watch some of them, but I like just him because the videos are a lot shorter. And so, yes, yeah. So I like his channel. I am subscribed to the other channel too, but I normally don't watch all the videos because it ends up being too long. Wow, the Peacock deals are worth around 1 million. Wow. Do you think he will be honest with the behavioral analysis unit? So I think he's going to enjoy talking about it. So that is kind of the sick side to people that do this. So him agreeing to fully cooperate with that unit, they are going to deep into his childhood, into his his sex life. They're going to dig into his relationships. They're going to talk about how he picked victims, what was some of the motivation. Like, they are going to dig into things that he may enjoy talking about. And they are there to study him. And that's where the narcissistic side, a lot of people like that too. And so I do follow Dr. G Explains as well. Do you think he'll be honest? Okay, good. I answered that question. Yeah. Yeah. So I think he will enjoy talking about these details. I do think he will. Those are just my general thoughts. Um I also, based on watching Emily D. Baker's coverage, it also came out that the family, even though they're not getting the trial, they are going to be able, so some of them may not know exactly what happened to their loved one or what evidence the state had. And so the state is going to meet with the families of each of the victims and go through the evidence. So that they're not going to be able to get a copy of the case file, most likely. Some things will probably be sealed, but the state is going to go through the evidence with the families. So sometimes psychopaths and brain scans. So you can't diagnose it just with a brain scan, but there's often a lower connectivity between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. And so the amygdala is where fear and empathy is. Prefrontal cortex, fear and anxiety is in the amygdala, and then the prefrontal cortex is empathy and guilt. And they're often very impulsive. We normally see things like that. And yes. All right. All right. So, I am super glad that we were able to chat about this today. I appreciate you all. I am keeping an eye on the Tanner. Y'all know I'm bad with names. He's in the sentencing, or no, he's in the sentencing phase. Tanner Horner. I am not going to talk about the details of that case, but it's my understanding he is claiming mental health as a mitigating factor to attempt to avoid the death penalty. And so I will be reviewing the testimony of the defense mental health experts. And then also, I'm sure the state is going to have mental health experts as well. I do personally, I mean, that's Texas. I don't see how he's going to get away. He did heinous crimes to children. He's charged in the death of a 7-year-old. And I think he'll probably get the death penalty. Also, it was random. So sometimes when you look at trials, people often get stronger sentences when it's a stranger versus when it's their own family member. And I don't know if anybody has studied that or anything, but when somebody does it to a random person, I think for the jurors, it brings up more of this, like, it could happen to anyone, versus somebody that picks their own child or somebody in their family. Sometimes there's not that same where a person feels threatened, like, and that it could have been them, or that they could be next. And so, yeah, he's a dad, and like, and they are trying to claim autism and exposure to, I think it was some substance prenatally, and lead exposure. And I watched portions of his interview. So I can't follow all of that trial. That trial is way too triggering. Please take care of your mental health. So I cannot see the videos because they are playing things for the jury that I just personally cannot watch, and I will not replay here. And but I do want to see the mental health experts. So I will talk about that. Yeah, fetal alcohol syndrome. I don't think he was ever diagnosed with it. I know he had like special education in school, but none of that. helps me understand what he did to children. And so like I personally I'm probably going to believe that he had nothing to do with his diagnoses, and just that there's something else, sicker going on. And so I work with a lot of people that are on the autism spectrum, and they would never. Often individuals with diagnoses like that are at a greater risk of being victims of somebody else taking advantage of them than doing something to somebody else. And so, yeah. So that's just a general comment, and that's more of a general thing. Um, uh, yeah, because I saw one. It was a couple. So I think a family. I think they were homeless, and And sorry if y'all can hear the people cutting the grass in the backyard. I think it's front yard up front. If y'all can hear the people cutting the grass, that's a little loud. But I saw a case where a family had locked their children in a storage unit, and the kids just had a bucket. And I think the mom got 18 months and the dad got 5 years. The children all survived, but there was severe neglect, and that was it. 5 years and 18 months. I do think it was likely a financial. They were likely unhoused, but you don't do that. It's weird. So I appreciate each and every one of you. I will see you all next time. One more look at the bag. She's so pretty. I am so happy. I just got it, and I think this part lights up. I haven't figured it out yet. I think it has to. I might have to charge it. That part lights up. But I will see you all next time. Have a good one. Bye.